Hi friends, April here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that this episode contains mentions of rape and suicide, so this episode may not be for everyone. Hi friends!
Hey friends, we're back.
We're back, and look, we look just the same. It's almost like we took maybe a 10-minute break between recording because we're committed to our culty episode. So,
And Claire's on
and
vacation.
Claire's going on vacation, so she gets to have a whole week of just rest and relaxation.
Also, there's children.
There
So,
are children, and although
so Aunt Claire has to be censored.
yeah, Aunt
I'm very
Claire
censored.
has to be careful because they're small children, and as we all know, small children
Yeah.
rat you out in a heartbeat just because they're stupid.
Yeah.
I did not
You
teach
should know.
Maggie I'm sexy and I know it, okay? I did not. That was not the song that was playing on the radio. It was a completely different song, and it was I'm Bringing Sexy Back. I finally remembered it. That was the song that played on the radio. And I was like, oh, trying to turn it down. And she starts singing, completely unrelated, I'm Sexy and I Know It, which again, different song, not what was on the radio. I didn't do it. Stop blaming me. Thank you.
How old was she?
She was 4.
And she's like, what, 15 now?
She is 13. 13. She'll be a freshman next year.
Okay. So almost 10 years ago.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
She's fine.
She is the only one that ever stayed with me completely alone with no other family members around for over a 24-hour period of time. So I didn't do it.
Right.
It wasn't me. Blame somebody else.
That was the first thing she told her parents too.
We had ice cream. We went to the park. We had pizza. We played Go Fish. We watched 101 Dalmatians. Like, we had the greatest time. Like, I tried
That's what she tells her
really
parents.
hard. Really, really hard to, like, not suck because I'd never had to do it before. And I was like, oh, God, that's a lot of time with a child. All right. So, like, I put my all into it. I was here for it. And that was my reward.
April taught me sexy and I know it.
And I'm talking, like, after we had the conversation of, hey, you know, that's a grown-up word that your mommy and daddy are not gonna want to hear you say. Because I'm not gonna say, don't say that. That's never gonna work. But I was trying to, like, be like, your mom and dad aren't gonna really like that word, so you might not want to say it around them. And, like, we had this whole conversation about it. We talked about all the fun things we did, and literally, I mean, that had been, like, several hours, by the way, before I took her home. And, like, literally less than 5 minutes after I dropped her off, I get the text, why does my daughter know I'm sexy and I know it? And I'm like, I didn't do that. It wasn't me. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Don't always believe the children.
The children are liars, okay? They're lying. And there you have it.
So
Anyway, welcome. Did I say this was episode 20? 20!
20.
Hey guys, next time we can drink. What? Nothing else happens at 20. It doesn't. 20.
No. Not at all.
So, here we are.
All right.
Well, Claire.
Yes.
What are you judging this week?
Well, right before this, Dad was telling me all about he and Mom have been watching the January 6th hearings.
My mom too. She's the one that's been keeping me up to date because I don't.
So yeah, Dad is very into it.
Good.
He's committed. He's hardcore.
We need more of those. More boomers watching the January 6th hearings, please.
Right. So, I mean, he's just, baffled with the whole thing, as I think all of it, the majority of us are.
Right?
And he was telling me a lot of the Bill Barr, him getting up there and saying, like, how people have told Trump, like, this election was not stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And even Ivanka, it's not stolen. And it's like, he still is harping on this, it's been stolen. And in the same vein, this past week, I had a customer hand us these little flyer things and invited us all to come watch the movie 2000 Mules, which is being put on in E Town by some kind of conservative group. Like, it's free. Come watch this movie, and I'm just like, no, I don't want to waste my time. It is by Dinesh D'Souza, and I'm sure it's trash. So I'm judging
Can
all these things that are
can I
like,
ask a stupid question? Like,
why?
maybe I just don't know.
Yes.
Why is it called 2000 Mules?
From what I can understand, um, they were using video cameras and cell phone pinging technology for people, and it was like there were like over like around 2,000 people who they caught on camera coming to the ballot box multiple times. People who were in the vicinity of a ballot box multiple times based on their cell phone data. Because I went and read up on it and I was like, this sounds so
Are
dumb.
you How did they access cell phone data? Like that's
I
like
don't know.
individual cell phones for cell phone
I
data.
don't know. I don't know.
And also, I don't believe you, but okay. I'm just like 2000 mules? Is that
So it's
supposed to
like,
be
yeah,
like
the
a
basically
it's mules is in the
like they're being
Democratic
mules.
Party or
Well, that and the fact that they're like being mules for ballots. Like they're delivering,
Oh, you mean like
like
I
you're,
dropped off my boyfriend's ballot when we were in California because I was dropping mine off at the same time or whatever, or I ran someone's
and
over that
that
they
is the
handed to me and it's like,
majority.
fuck you.
That's the majority of what it is. It's people dropping off ballots for family
Because
members, which is
anyone can drop a
completely
ballot,
legal.
guys. I'm sorry. I know some of you live in these backward states where you have to be in person and do all this shit in order to vote, but like, it's not supposed to be that way. You're able to fill out a form where you have to sign it. Like, you're only allowed one form. They're all tracked. They all
Yeah.
have digital markers on them, so they get scanned in, so you can't have multiple. So, yes, of course, someone in your household could have filled out your ballot for you or could have coerced you into filling it out the way that you want it, but that's how it works anyway. There's already people coercing their spouses to be like, you have to vote for this idiot because I said so, or whatever. So, like,
You want to hear what this is what Wikipedia has to say about this.
great,
2000 Mules opens with a misleadingly edited clip
usually.
from October 2020 of presidential candidate Joe Biden responding to a podcaster's question about boosting his election turnout. After replying, Republicans are doing everything they can to make it harder for people to vote, especially people of color to vote,
Hmm.
Biden added. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. His second statement was taken out of context in clips and memes that went viral on conservative media at the time. So it's like right off the bat,
Hmm.
they're using like, you know,
Yeah,
misleading
they're editing
tactics.
stuff down, which
Yeah,
is annoying.
it said it was purporting to be an admission that Democrats were preparing to commit election fraud. This was debunked at the time, as Biden was actually referring to safeguarding the vote,
Hmm.
later adding, what Trump is trying to do is discourage people from voting by implying that their vote won't be counted, it can't be counted, and that we're going to challenge it and all these things. So it's just like, it's just a conservative take on how the election was stolen, is basically
Well, and
what all
the
that
thing that
is.
makes me
This movie.
insane, by the way, is that Trump was the president and he wasn't good enough or smart enough or capable enough or have enough people, which is literally all he did was get people and have people and as a rotating door of crazy. He couldn't have fixed this shit before the election. Like, then you don't
Right.
want him as a president anyway. Because, like, you can't fix
Right.
this very simple problem. I mean, like,
100%.
dude, you had all the power. Like, I don't understand.
Also
Ugh.
also Wikipedia says the film relies on data provided by a group called True the Vote, which is a stupid name. According to NPR, a conservative election integrity group called True the Vote has made multiple misleading or false claims
Hmm.
about its own work, NPR has found, including the suggestion that they helped solve the murder of an 8-year-old girl in Atlanta. The claim appears in a new pro Trump film called 2000 Mules NPR said that True the Vault's claim that it solved a murder of a young girl in Atlanta was false. So, like, this group is like it's
Just
this
saying
group
random
and
crap.
I know! It's this group and Dinesh D'Souza that have put this movie out to try to tell people that this election was stolen, and from what I'm seeing from, non-biased, people who are not, like NPR even, it's like, I feel like they're fairly non-biased. They're just like, "Yeah, this is not non-biased information. This is just," like you said, just people making movies so they can say whatever the hell they want,
I'm s
and then people believe
I'm
it.
just so tired. Like, guys, can we just move on to the next conspiracy theory? Like, let's have a new one. Let's pick something else. Move forward.
Like, I feel like this is like QAnon Bush all over
Ugh,
again,
so tired of the QAnon crazy. I'm tired of all of it, honestly, because it just makes
Right.
me angry and sad at how
It's
pathetically
insane.
stupid so many people are. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're pathetically stupid. Because once upon a time, you could trust all news networks because all news networks
Right.
were not profit driven in order to, their goal was to present news.
Bring the
I mean,
news.
was there some inherent bias because that's how people are? Of course, but was there intentional bias? Not really. And then they became
No.
these profit-driven companies, and now it's all intentional bias, especially Fox News, which isn't remotely accurate at all. They report things that aren't remotely true and ignore things like the January 6th hearings. They didn't even show them. It's like, this is a
Right.
huge, big thing, and you're not even giving your stupid
And then you have
slant.
people
Like,
on there like Tucker Carlson
fucker Carlson.
who bills himself as news, but then when he is actually sued by somebody for not reporting the news, then he's like, "Oh, well, I'm satire."
Yeah,
And no
no
reasonable
reasonable
person
person would believe me.
would believe
Yeah.
anything that I say. And it's like, but you're still billing yourself as news. And I still see people using his clips and stuff as fact,
Yes.
as news,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
And
not.
I'm like,
And that's what these people with this 2,000 mules thing is
yeah.
they're gonna do. They're gonna, like this is real. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Well, and what frustrates me is that, if you can show me real verifiable evidence,
Right.
I would be willing to say I've had my foot in my mouth. What, I did not know this existed. I haven't seen this. I'm not aware of this. This is, correct, verifiable evidence that doesn't have other explanations, that isn't made up or isn't slanted or isn't changed in any way. It's just, here's some evidence or here's some arguments for you to consider. But that's not what I get, because when I in turn say, "Well, here's
Right.
verifiable evidence," well, that's lies. I'm like, you can't just say
Right.
that. You have to show me how this particular set of evidence is lies. That the owner of this
Right.
company is actually being paid by what? Like, you have to do more than just
It
say
is.
it's
It's just like
lies.
just because yeah, it's like just because you don't like what they're saying
Well,
doesn't mean that it's not true.
and like, and you know who I'm talking about. But I get the whole, well, we have different opinions. It's like, this isn't an opinion. This is fact. There
Right.
are facts out there. This is not us disagreeing on, whether the shade of this stupid dress is black and gold or blue and white. It's
Right.
actual verifiable information that you're choosing to ignore because it doesn't go with the narrative that you like. Which I
Right.
get it. It's hard. It's awful. I hate when I find out I'm wrong about something. I hate it.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
definitely.
not super great at
I
dealing
mean,
with
like
it, but by golly, that's reality. I've changed my mind about a lot of things because people have given me better information,
yes.
So,
I mean, there are a lot
oh,
of times that I'm not, nobody likes to be wrong.
no, no,
Nobody likes to set out to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be
right.
wrong about this." People, but it's like you show me something that proves it otherwise, and it's like, "Okay, my bad." I take it back. So, but yeah, like you said, a lot of these times it's just like people are like opinions, and you're just like, "But that's what you think.
It's like,
That's not reality."
like, you can't just be like, well, I think this, so it's real. Like, that's not how facts
Right.
work. That's not how reality
No.
works. Stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of these people, man.
Well, that was a nice fun rant.
So yeah, that's my judge.
It's
Just
an excellent judge.
all this crazy that's still happening
It's never ending.
from
Forever.
like forever ago.
I know,
And it's
right?
like,
Like, dude,
it is, it's never ending.
we're gearing up for the next presidential election. Calm down.
Yeah.
You need to calm
Oh,
down.
and then like we were talking about earlier, in that same vein, like I want to know why Trump has not been arrested for calling the Georgia Attorney
Well, for the
General,
myriad of
begging him to
illegal
find him
things that
votes,
he has done, that he
because that was on
blatantly
that was
has
on
done.
a recording.
Yes.
You know, that recording was out there, and it's like he was asking him to find him 11,000
Mhm.
votes. What? What universe is this? What timeline are we in? Because I hate it. I hate everything. So that in that same vein, it's just all like that's
Yes.
illegal. That is illegal as far as I'm concerned,
Mhm.
and we're just gonna let him get away with it. Like, okay, cool, nice to know that whoever has the most money just doesn't have to abide by any
Well,
laws
and I argue
whatsoever.
he doesn't actually have that much money. I think it's all fake.
Right?
I don't.
Probably.
Does he have way more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime? Of course, absolutely. But I don't think he has as much as he's like, I have billions. I'm like, no, you don't. You
Right.
might have like
Yeah.
10 million or something if you're
It's
lucky.
huge.
It's like I think people are just paying for your stuff because you're Trump or whatever. But whatever.
Right.
My own personal conspiracy theory. All
It's
right.
true. So, what are you judging?
I have a fun one.
Yes.
So Spencer brought this to me. They were being handed out, put on like cars and oh, it must have been put on his car. It was while I was gone on
Okay.
vacation.
Okay.
I'm gonna show it to you here, and then I'm gonna read it.
Ebony Ape Cat?
Hmm.
Have you seen the Ebony Ape Cat?
Have you seen the Ebony Ape Cat?
No. No, I
Please
haven't.
file a paranormal report at Margie's Outdoor Store. Now I want to go ahead and tell everyone. Margie's Outdoor Store is like a convenience store. I think I've not been in, but they sell lots of other stuff there too. But next door to it is Margie's Pot Shop, which is not related, and I'm not making any kind of claims here. I just wanted you to know that like it's one of my favorite places to drive by because their sign is amazing.
It just says
it's just
pot really
it's
big.
just a and it's like in diagonal letters. It's just
Yeah, it's like
I love it so much.
Pot.
But like I have some friends who visit that part of Margie's, so they're
Gotcha.
lovely, nice, good people. But Margie's Outdoor Store has received multiple credible reports of an ebony ape cat, in parentheses, EAC, which makes this so much better, and I don't know why, prowling the
Why is this so
Columbia River
ridiculous?
Gorge. This cryptid's frame is like that of an enormous, heavily muscled panther. It is covered in jet black fur that is 4 to 5 inches long. Its prominent tail is estimated to be 6 feet long. What?
What?
That's very long.
That's insane. It means his tail is bigger than me.
Yes, it is. In some reports, it possesses intelligent ape like eyes and other primate features.
What does this even mean?
I don't know. I've never heard of this before. So I'm just like, okay. Magnetic compass anomalies have accompanied some sightings. But don't worry, no hostile interactions have been reported.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad nobody has been attacked by the
Well,
Ebony
if
Ape
they
Cat.
have, then it drug them off and never to be seen from heard from again.
Right.
Please report any sightings or rumors you have heard. Nothing is too insignificant. You will not be judged. Information updates will be posted on Margie's Outdoor Store social media accounts. And then at the bottom, in big bold letters, we are serious. This is not a joke. And I'm here going, I love everything about this because now I'm like, Bigfoot has a pet. All right? I'm here for it.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, is this that Squatch's cat? Is that what this
I
is?
mean, although, I'm super huge into cats, of course. I don't know if I want them to have intelligent ape like eyes. That seems creepy. I think I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable there. It can be a giant black panther. I mean, we have cougars here, so why not?
Right.
Oh, but there's more. On the back. Woo.
Oh, there's a
There's a
backside.
backside. Have you had a paranormal experience in the gorge? Sasquatch sightings. Portal openings.
Portals. Yes.
Fae encounters.
Oh my gosh.
UFOs or UAPs.
What's a UAP?
Temporal shifts. Ghost experiences. And strange occurrences are all on the rise in our area. File a report at Margie's Outdoor Store. Your story is important. Nothing is too insignificant. You will not be judged. And then at the bottom, yes, we are serious about this. I love this so much. Like, I want to
It
go in and be
is
like, tell me more.
right. Let me be a part of this. UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Sure. I assumed it was UFO-ish related, but
Right. Yeah, but I was
I
like, what
love
does
that.
that
I'm like,
stand for?
Sasquatch sightings, of course. I've heard lots about, like, the UFO sightings in the area.
Right.
And, my house is haunted, so sure, ghosties and other strange things. But I'm like, portals? And
What is
temporal
this?
shifts? I don't know.
Right.
I've not heard any of these stories, guys. And now we have the ape cat, the Ebony Ape Cat. In case
Ebony
you're
Ape
wondering,
Cat.
this is an artist rendition of the
I
Ebony
love
Ape
it.
Cat.
I need you to take a picture of that so we can
I,
put it on the
I
socials.
will send it to you. I love this so much because it was just like on Spencer's car. Like someone went around and put it on everybody's car, and I'm like, I live in the
Yes.
best town ever.
This is nice. This is fantastic.
I was like, Spencer's like, I saved this for you. It's perfect for your podcast. I was like, it is perfect for our podcast. Are you kidding me? This is
And also,
everything.
Spencer is a good boyfriend for realizing that that's a thing.
Spencer
And
is an excellent boyfriend. Yes. But I think just like my favorite thing is the "we are serious, this is not a joke" at the bottom. I'm like, thank you for
I know.
putting that, because I think my first instinct would be okay, whatever.
You're
But
like,
they one of my coworkers was there for something, and I guess saw all of, they apparently have a lot of Bigfoot merchandise down there, like Sasquatch themed,
yeah.
blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And she was taking pictures of it for me because we're having a program later this summer about Bigfoot. We have a local person
You were
who,
telling me about that. Somebody bringing in like the foot casts and
who,
footprint
he's
casts.
going to talk about his various encounters with Bigfoot and blah blah blah. And so she mentioned that to them because they were like, "Oh, you're into Bigfoot," and she's telling them, and they were like, "Oh, let us know when it is. We want to go." And I'm like, "Okay,
You're
sure."
like, oh,
It's more numbers for my program, so all right.
nice.
So I'll have to go down there to drop off a flyer when we get closer to it, but it's just like,
Right.
now that I have this, I'm like, what a magical place this is. Can't
Right.
wait to go
You're
in.
like, Margie's outdoor store is fantastic.
But now I'm like, there's Fae here? I don't want any of that. They nuts.
No,
They
no, no,
mean. They
no.
bad. But also, am
Right.
I gonna accidentally find a portal? Is that why? Wait, is my
Right.
timeline jump? Should I report my timeline jump?
Maybe.
It's like I'm in the wrong timeline. This is not my correct timeline.
Right. You'd be like, I know I'm in the wrong timeline.
Mm-hmm. Be like, here's my proof. Someone is dead in my timeline that is not dead in this one. Weird. The garbage disposal is on the wrong side. And what was the
Right.
other one? I had another weird one. I was like,
Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon. He totally was Publishers Clearinghouse in my timeline. He was.
Right. Because
Crazy.
there's a thing saying that no, he was not, and I know that he
He
was.
was.
These people are
Anyway,
liars.
I guess we better crack into this because
All
mine's a
right.
longin'.
Because she's got 12 pages of notes,
I
guys.
do. All right, guys. Are you ready? Are you excited? This is part 2 of our cult episodes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Cultening.
Part 2, the cultening. It's
That's
true.
right. That might just be the title of this episode.
Right.
All right. Let me
Let's
fix my hair real
let's
quick. Are you ready?
yes,
For
let's get
those of
into
you
it.
in the know, you know now I am doing Teal Swan. Dun.
Uh-oh. Teal Swan.
Teal Swan. She likes
This
to wear
sounds
her hair
ridiculous.
all on one side. It's
Okay.
very
So this
bizarre
is
to
a
me.
person.
She is a person.
I don't know anything about this,
I'm
so
so
this is
excited about
like
it. Okay, so for those of you who are obsessed with watching the newest thing as soon as it happens, I actually was counting down, like I had it marked on my calendar when this docu-series was starting. It was coming out on Freeform, which I never watch, but I have Hulu, so.
right.
And it came up in like an advertisement or something, and I was like, who's Teal Swan? I don't know who that is, but apparently she might be a cult leader, and I'm like, I'm here for this right now. So
Right.
I'm going to tell you that I got all of my information from watching The Deep End on Hulu. I also
That's the name of the
listened.
name of it is The Deep
Mhm.
End. Okay, I'll have to look
I
it up.
also listened to a podcast from 2018 about Teal Swan called The Gateway.
Okay.
I looked at her website, tealswan.com, and got information there.
Oh, so you
Wikipedia.
like you went to the
I
source.
went down the hole, man. I went to Wikipedia, of course, which had a big like thing at the top saying that this may have been edited and that you shouldn't trust it, and then saying you can't
Wow.
do certain things and it's wrong. And I'm like, holy crap. Also, the
Wow.
BBC, and also just kind of randomly at the end, I found The Truth About Cameron, which he doesn't matter to my particular story, but I got an excerpt from a book there, so I didn't have to like look at the book.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Teal Swan
Yes.
is a spiritual teacher that has amassed millions of followers online, on YouTube, on TikTok. She has an Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, she also has a blog.
Okay.
She offers spiritual guidance, and she has techniques that she promises will heal past traumas.
Okay.
So she's written a few books. People all around the world. She's a best-selling author, so people buy her books. They attend her live stage events that are not cheap, and they go
Oh, I
to
would imagine
her.
so, because usually they're not.
There, I mean, she's not super astronomically expensive in comparison to a lot of the other cult leaders I come across.
Right.
Um, but it's still not free. Uh, but her YouTube channel is. You can watch all of her things for free. You can
Noted.
also, people also apply to go to her exclusive retreats. They have a retreat center in Costa Rica. Costa
Ah,
Rica. It's called Philia,
Philia.
which is weird because never mind. That's fine. On her website, her little mini bio is that Teal Swan is an international speaker and best-selling author. She is a survivor of severe childhood abuse. Today, having integrated her own harrowing life experience, she inspires millions of people around the world towards truth, authenticity, freedom, and joy.
Okay. I mean, sounds okay so far.
Well, I'm trying to just give you like who she is in the world, like
Right.
how the world knows her, since you don't
Gotcha.
know her at all.
No. No, I
I
don't.
didn't either, so you know. On her website, let's see, it said there's some more information like you can surmount your suffering, you can heal your wounds and awaken to an empowered, authentic life, even if you have been stuck in pain for years. And this is what they're grabbing for. They're trying to get the people who are in like these really dark places. Like that's their target audience, is who they're reaching. So Teal Swan according to, again, her website bio, was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico on June 16th, 1984 at 7:42 a.m.
So she's my age.
Mm-hmm.
Noted.
She was born with a range of extrasensory abilities.
What?
It's because of these abilities that she ended up being targeted to become a victim of abuse. In her own words, without the abuse and suffering I experienced, I would be someone who could give you a lot of esoteric information about the universe at large, but who would have no real grasp on the reality of human suffering or how to heal it. I would have had only half of the picture of human existence. The gift of my own suffering is that I now have the full picture, and that has drastically changed both what I teach and the way that I teach.
Hmm. So, like, what kind of abilities are we talking?
We'll get
Like,
there.
that's what I want to
We'll
know.
get there. This is just like super entry level. You're looking at her website.
Junk.
Who
I'm
is
like, what
she?
is
What is
this?
she? What do I need to know about her? Blah 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 blah. So yeah. Well, we're in. She's a spiritual teacher, Claire. So I mean,
Yeah.
people who are falling into
Okay.
this particular group are open to those ideologies, like So, but we'll get into it. So, Teal has been around for several years, but she has garnered
Okay.
media attention on and off for the past, I don't know, 5 to 10 years for a variety of reasons that are not great. So, primarily, one of the biggest criticisms or
What?
concerns that she receives is that
Wow.
she is
And that's
causing
obviously not what she's
suicides
wanting
to
to do?
occur through her
Or is that
self-help
her
YouTube
goal?
videos and blogs. So, and
Okay.
there's some her goal is to help people. Her goal is to help people heal their past
Mhm.
trauma, to go to the
Gotcha.
dark, bad places and face it. She has a very, we'll go with, different approach than mainstream psychotherapy.
Gotcha.
But so one of the issues is that she has these videos that are on
Are
YouTube,
watching these videos
and
and
she
then
is
they're
telling people
following
things,
through.
and she has no idea who's
Yeah.
watching those videos. So people who may be suicidal, because, well, the guy who did the podcast, his name is Jennings Brown, and he had never
Mhm.
heard of her, but had
The
been
name of the
watching
song?
YouTube and had
No,
watched
I don't.
a video or something that was the theme song to MASH, which is called, do you know
The tune.
what the name of the
Do, do, do,
yeah.
do, 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 do.
So it's called Suicide is
No, I
Painless.
did not
And it's a
know.
song that a group actually sings. Like, we just know the
Okay.
tune because we grew up watching MASH. But it's
Not yeah,
Suicide
not
is
MASH. Yeah.
Painless. And I don't remember the words, but no, so it's a song. And so he was watching a video of the song, not
Oh,
MASH.
after
But
it was
it's
over.
called Suicide is Painless. And so YouTube suggested a Teal video after. And so he's watching, he's like, how did I get here? And it's
Yeah.
because they use SEO, search engine optimization, uh, in
Okay.
order to get people who are looking up things like
Mhm.
suicide or whatever to fall into her
Be great.
category, because she
Gotcha.
says she wants to help them. I think that's real. But her methods may not be the correct choice for everyone. We'll go with that for now. For one of the reasons is that
Ew. Okay.
she likens suicide to a reset button because she believes in reincarnation. So,
Yeah.
and one of the thing, and I mean, at this point, I have watched a lot of videos all over the place, including some of her own. I find her very discomforting, but it's my own personal whatever. I can see how people would fall into this and keep watching. But in one of them, she said something about how, if people knew
Wow.
how good
Yeah,
death
that already
is,
seems
you know, how great it
problematic.
could
Like,
be.
that's
Everyone would be wanting death. And I'm like, uh I mean, right. But, you know, I but ultimately she believes in
you're coming back as
reincarnation
somebody else.
and that, your soul becomes someone
Oh,
else.
yeah.
So like if you die now, whatever. But she's not but it's not like she's saying in these videos go kill yourself so you can come back as
Okay.
something better. Like that's not what she's saying, but she does say things like this, like it's a reset button and it's not that bad and
Gotcha.
it's actually a good thing and
That
blah blah
just
blah blah.
yeah, that does seem problematic, though.
So
That's just
like
a
she's
li
not telling
I'm
people to kill
no matter where
himself.
you look at it, it's just
Exactly.
like,
Sometimes, mostly.
that's a little cringy, not gonna lie.
But right, right. So she it's really uncomfortable. And she in one of her techniques, and there are videos of this on YouTube, and it's a technique that
Wow.
she truly believes in, is she has people visualize their suicide. It's like see yourself how you would do it, what you would do. And like when she's doing it with a group of people that are there with her, because it's usually like a small group of people at a retreat or something. And that's where I saw her say it, was that I think from the
Right.
docu-series, like a video. And so like when like that's a self-contained place, you can handle, you can deal, you can walk people through, to make sure that they're getting to the appropriate place, I
Right.
guess, to the good conclusion to that
Yes.
scenario or conversation. But when it's a video on YouTube, you don't know who's watching. You don't know where they are mentally, like
Yeah, and
where
you
their
don't know
mental
what,
health
like,
is,
coping mechanisms
how
these
close
people
they
have
already
and
are
just
to
all that,
suicide.
yeah.
So that's where a lot of
Yeah.
health professionals are really concerned and are sounding alarms, like this is not okay. And
Right.
yeah, well, it's like you just don't know who's watching this video. You don't know, and so it's dangerous to have that out there for anyone to consume. But then one of the other criticisms, my personal criticism really, but
Mhm.
it's other people mentioned it. It's not come up
Watched her
in the
videos.
news
Yes.
media attacks as much as the suicide thing has been the big thing, because there have been
Right.
people have committed suicide who have had connection to Teal's videos or programs or whatever, and you can't ever truly know if that's what pushed them over, obviously, but there's concern. But one of the ways she has people, especially like in these small workshops or
Uh-oh.
whatever, to try and deal with their trauma is that
Mhm.
they will have other people who are there, like part of the same like workshop or whatever, agree to channel the spirit of like usually the parents
Mhm.
in order for them to kind of go through the trauma or react to the trauma. Like it's not like I'm role playing. It's I'm
Wow.
channeling their spirit and their spirit's in me, so when I say things out loud, I am the parent or I am the abuser or whatever. And I watched it happen a couple times. I'm going to
Right.
talk about this again because
That's
there was one that was
really weird.
particularly disturbing to me. But so like it's just a weird other thing that they're doing. Ugh. Okay. Um, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
of course one of the big complaints that had popped up in the media is that it's a cult, that she is in fact a cult leader, partly because there are people. So there are multiple layers.
Mhm.
So she has like her little group around
Yeah.
her, like a group. I think there's maybe like 6 to 10 of them that she calls like
It's like
her
her
intentional
entourage
community. That's
or
always with her. Like they don't live together in the same house, but they all live around each
right.
other and they're always together and they're always working on stuff and they're right. Most of them have been with her for years and years and years and years. Um, Beyond that, there is a private Facebook group, I
Okay.
think there's like 200,000 people perhaps in it. And they kind of help each other, but she's also within that as well. Like, I don't know that she talks to them a whole lot, but like,
Oh,
but
jeez.
it's like the next layer. They're called the Teal tribe, which my brain can't handle. Can't can't fathom it.
They're not as
Um,
committed as some of these other folks.
and then beyond that, there's like followers and things who are coming to her events or going to things, but
Gotcha.
maybe aren't as invested. Like they're well, I mean, they're pretty committed, but they're not. They haven't given up their lives,
Yeah.
I guess. Um, so, but there has been accusations that she separates people from their families. Um, and at and in one of the things she talks about how sometimes you have to accept that your own
Mhm.
family is your enemy, and it's not surprising to me that the members of like her inner circle, her intentional community or whatever, they don't communicate or have relationships with their families as a general rule. Um, they all are
I
like, "This
mean,
is our family. This is the family we chose. This is our intentional family." And I'm like, "What?" It's like if there's like
right.
a couple of people in that group who just like
Right.
their families were bad for them and they'd been growing apart from them for years and they just don't communicate. That's one thing, but like all of them, that's and like their families are concerned enough to like reach out. So so there's the
Right.
criticism that she's a cult leader, and at the beginning of the documentary you're kind of like, maybe she is, maybe she isn't, I don't know. They kind of go back and forth.
Like,
And
yeah.
same with the podcast I listened to. Like they were coming from a place
Right.
of, what is this, who is she, what's going on? Like, I
Right.
know what the media is saying, but I also know what her followers are saying because they love her and claim that she's done lots of good things and helped. So it's like, I want to
Okay.
know. So we're going to go back to the start of her career
Okay.
within the spiritual healing world for her. So she's a young adult, like early 20s. And
Mhm.
one of her very first clients, when she had just started kind of seeing clients, was named Leslie Wangsgard. Now, Leslie was incredibly depressed and was having suicidal thoughts. Um, and in her meetings with Teal, she uncovered memories of her father
Okay.
abusing her. And so, like, it made things a lot worse for Leslie. Like, she just felt, I think her father had died at that point. So, like, she just had a lot of unresolved feelings, and it was just a lot. It added to her depression. And in at least one session, and based on how Teal describes it, it sounds like several sessions. Um, Leslie was pretty suicidal and talked about it a lot. And at least once, and again, sounds like
Wow.
several,
That's some
Teal told her
heavy stuff
that
to
she
deal
had
with.
to commit either to life or commit to death. Right. So Teal took a few days for herself, which is totally fine. There's not a judgment there. To go
Mhm.
out into the desert to kind of have her own kind of peacetime, whatever she was doing. But she was unreachable during that time. And when she returned to several frantic voicemails
Wow.
from Leslie. And then the last voicemail was from Leslie's husband, telling Teal that Leslie had killed herself. So this is in 2012.
Mhm.
So this this is kind of the
Oh,
the
so he
starting
actually
point
talked
in
to
the
her.
podcast, The
Okay.
Gateway, that I listened to. And in one of the conversations that Jennings has with Teal, he asks her, yes, oh yes. So he talks to her and he asks her if she feels like she's at fault, if she's to blame, if she should have or could have done something
Mhm.
different, did she consider, because this is the first suicide that really marks Teal. Like, it's the one that follows her, it's the one people bring up a lot as criticism. It's like, she was your client, she killed herself. And he's like, do you consider this a failure? And these are Teal's verbatim words on the podcast, because it was very important to me that I give you these words.
Wow.
Leslie was no mistake at all. I did
She's
not make a
so
single
sure
mistake with
about
Leslie,
that.
in
Like,
fact.
she's like, that sounds very like, this is, I'm certain.
So Jennings pushes further. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, she's very sure. And this is, this is
Right.
6-7 years later. This podcast came out in like 2018. So, like, it's time she could have ruminated on that and maybe changed her mind. But, so when Jennings kind of pushes her on it and says, he asked about the commit to life or commit to death statement.
Okay. That
Teal was
just,
like pretty blasé about it. And she said, yeah, we talked about it all the time. You have to commit to one or the other. It
right.
came up a lot in our conversations. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so, Jennings pushed back the way that you and I would have and was like, but it seems like when you're saying that, you're making
Right.
someone have to choose. And so if they're having to choose, they're like, well, I'm not ready to choose life. I guess I have to choose death. I
How does
can't
she
be in
know?
the middle, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And Teal's response to that was, well, that's not where people go with that. And he was like, well, but Leslie went there. Leslie went there. She's dead. She chose death.
What?
And Teal's response to that was,
Nuh-uh.
no, she
Oh
went there
gosh,
because
that's
I
so
was
weird.
gone. Because she was, not there in the desert. So then, I'm not done. I'm not done. So then he follows that up. Because he's like, well, if you
Like,
knew that
hey,
there
I'm
was
gonna
a
be gone for a few
possibility
days.
that she
If
was
you need to talk to
suicidal and had
anybody,
these
here's this
ideations,
number.
why
Call
wouldn't
this
you connect
person
her with
and,
someone else
talk to
while you were
them. Yeah,
gone?
because that's probably what any therapist would do.
Yes. Right. Exactly. That's correct. Any therapist has
Right.
all sorts of built-in safe things because they understand that things happen. Things in people's lives can change in an instant, and they need someone in that moment.
That just seems really callous.
But Teal's answer
And
to that was, I'm not her provider. I'm a spiritual teacher.
right.
And I'm like, when I heard it the first time, I was driving in my car and I was listening to it and I was like,
Right.
bitch! Like, it's literally, you can't even take the tiniest blame of, you know what, looking
That's what
back,
I'm
I
saying.
wish I
Yeah, like,
had
that
done
just
that.
sounds
That's
really
something that
cold
I've absolutely
and, like,
incorporated now.
unfeeling.
Like,
It's just
it's unimaginable to me, the callousness of her. And so, like, to me, I'm responding to these things where I'm like,
right.
what the,
Right.
and he doesn't really bring it up or have any commentary on this conversation. Like, this is me just telling you exactly how I felt listening to it, being like, the fuck is wrong with you?
Mhm.
And so that was the first suicide, and the one that comes up a lot in connection with criticism of her. So now we're going to kind of talk about some weird shit. So we're going to talk about memory.
Mhm.
So if you recall, Leslie, in her conversations and in her sessions with Teal, recovered memories of her father abusing her. So this is another thing, another criticism that comes up is how Teal deals with memory and
Mhm.
encourages her followers to delve into like early childhood trauma to explain why they are the way they are. And so one of the things that she said about memory, and one of the many things that I have watched at this point, is memory is both incredibly accurate and incredibly fallible. So part of what she does is she wants people
Mhm.
to, it's called, like, her therapy process is called the completion
Yeah.
process.
Like a
And I
legit.
listened to Jennings
Yes.
Bryan do a session with
Yes.
a completion process counselor who had been, trained or what certified or whatever word you want to use with Teal Swan. And so it goes like this. It's what has triggered you lately?
Yeah.
And he was like, I felt really claustrophobic on the bus the other day. Like, there's just a lot of people on the bus, and it was just upsetting. And she was like, well, can you think of something from childhood that made you feel that way? And he's like, I don't know. And eventually he comes up with this memory when he was a little kid of his
Mm-hmm.
older
Yeah.
cousins flipping him upside down and putting him in a laundry basket, and him feeling claustrophobic and that, like, being surrounded by stuff. And they he's like, I hadn't thought of that. Like, I'd completely forgotten that
Right.
even happened. And he said,
Yeah.
and now I'm left with this memory of my cousins bullying me, and I don't feel better. I feel worse. Kind of a thing. But the point is that that's how those sessions go. It's about trying to remember apparently anything before age 8. You're supposed to remember to figure out why you feel about things the way you feel. And
So it's not
for the people who
necessarily
can't come up
a
with something,
memory.
they're
You're
pushed until they're like
pulling something
to
else like
imagine
this.
what might have made me feel that
Okay,
way.
gotcha.
Right. Now, mhm. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it becomes incredibly problematic, but we'll
Mm.
pause at that moment. And Teal says that she encourages people to not focus on whether or not the memory is true,
This all sounds
but to
so
accept it
ridiculous.
as valid and to continue working to determine whether or not it was true. Now, interestingly, 30%,
Yeah.
like 30% at least of the people who go through these processes, and this is according to the completion process people, not me, not the podcasters, not this is according to their 30% of the people who go through this form of, we'll call it therapy for kicks and giggles, have repressed childhood
Right.
memories of
I get
extreme abuse and torture.
just all seems like so I don't
And
know.
that seems incredibly high to me.
I don't even know the words I'm looking for like how I'm feeling about this, but it's just yeah, everything
And
about it is
so
uncomfortable. It's just like
so
it's so
my
cringy.
issue,
Everything is cringy.
right. It's very uncomfortable to me. I'm like, ugh. But part of my issue is with her approach is that if you're giving something validity without question, even if you're not agreeing that it's true, you're already
Gotcha. Even
creating a
though
situation in which you're more likely
it
to
very
believe that
well
it is
could
true
not be.
because you're like, well, these feelings are valid. And so maybe this memory is valid. And you convince yourself that it's real. Well, and so people who have left, one of their big criticisms is that, they uncovered all this abuse, and
Right.
they found out that their parents were awful, horrible people and didn't love them. And when they get out, they're like, none of that was real. Like, they
Wow.
weren't real memories.
Yeah.
It was just encouraged for them to keep going until they found something
Okay.
that was dark and twisted. You know what I mean? And in the docuseries, which you absolutely have to watch, Claire, it's only 4 parts. They talk to this woman who I just feel horrible for because she just looks so sad and so alone in the world to me. But she recovered
Yeah.
her memories of abuse through Till's completion process, and
Oh
she's still in it. Like, this is all still
gosh.
100% real and true for her. She says that her father
What?
first raped her when she was 4 years old, and it was as punishment because she was messing with a cake that her mom had made for a party. And that
That
she was
is
screaming so
insane.
loud that her mom came into the room, saw what was happening, and just walked out. And
Right.
like, okay, let's say I believe that her dad was an abuser and maybe her mom was just glad she wasn't being abused in that horrific situation. But then she
Mhm.
goes on to say that the worst memory that she had recovered was that they had like a family gathering, like with extended family or whatever, and the adults had built like a barbecue
What?
pit and they
That's
put the kids
that's
on
insane as
the
well.
barbecue pit as punishment. And I'm like, there is
Right.
absolutely no way that that is
Right.
real. Like, there's just no way that many adults would all just agree that we're going to put the kids on the barbecue pit. And I want to be like, where are
Yes.
your third
Okay.
degree burns? Like, I don't. So, like, this is what's coming out of this. Then let's go back to the creepy channeling thing. This is the one that really bothered me. So, and this again was on the docu-series. I watched it happen and I was like, what am I watching? What have I watched happen? Because I'm really confused. So there is this weird, again, this is like a small group at like a workshop, an intimate workshop or whatever. And there is a woman there named Ellie. And she was dealing with trying to figure out why her parents, what was it about her parents and her as a child? Like, why is she the way she is? Blah, 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 blah. And so they have one
Mhm.
of the workshop people accept
Okay.
the spirit of Ellie as a child into her to portray Ellie, to channel that spirit. Ellie's not doing it, it's someone else. And then they have two other people channel the parents, Ellie's parents. And so these three people are channeling people and then they're creating a scenario. Like they're acting out something that in theory happened to her when she was little.
But they
And
weren't.
so she's getting really upset about it because she's like, this,
No.
I had no idea my parents were this awful, were so bad. And I'm going, they're
This is
making this up. They're not really, your parents' spirit is not
this
really
is
in them. Your
insane.
childhood
I mean, I
spirit is
really feel
not
like
in
this
that
is
person. And like,
insanity right here.
they've made up, like, they're all super into it and committed. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching? And I mean, like, I understand, like, one of the
Right.
sometimes helpful things that you can do in
Yes,
therapy is
yes.
like the empty chair, where you project a person on that chair so that you can have a conversation with
Never
them,
met. Yes.
but it's you doing it based on your memories and your understanding of the person
Mm-mm.
and not
No,
three complete
I
strangers
mean,
who you don't know
that all
portraying
just
people that
sounds
they have
like some kind
never
of
met, but are
crazy.
somehow being possessed
That
by
doesn't
and
sound like a
channeling. I
normal
mean,
therapy session to me. That just sounds insane. No.
and I'm like, I don't understand. No.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
No.
And what is her
So let's
trauma?
talk about
Like what
Teal
that's what
again.
what happened? Oh, okay, good.
Who is she? Where did she come from? Well,
Okay.
we're getting there. So Teal was born Mary Teal Bosworth. So Teal is a real name for her. It's her middle name. It seems to be what everyone called her growing up.
This
She
explains
was
so
born in
much.
Santa Fe, but she grew up in Logan, Utah, which is a very Mormon town. And her parents were hippie-ish and not Mormon at all.
Yeah.
Now, she says that she was bullied from a very young
Oh
age and
yeah,
felt very
100%.
different and alienated from the other kids, partly religion and culture wise, which fair. I mean, Mormonism is very different from literally anything else. In the podcast with Jennings Brown, she tells him that she realized that she was different because she could feel and see
Okay.
things that the other kids couldn't. So, like, she would see interdimensional beings,
Gotcha.
and would sometimes describe people by their color, like their aura. She could see their auras, and the other kids are like, "What are you talking about, weirdo?" Now, her mother, who appears in none of these things, but
Don't
apparently there is
don't
another
watch it.
documentary that exists about Teal that's only on Gaia, which tells you everything you need to know. Don't go there, guys. It's not safe. It's its own cult. Don't go there.
Okay.
But her mother supported this, that, she was very hypersensitive even from the beginning, especially to sound, that she was different,
Whatever that means.
and was a hard kid to deal with, which is just a very vague. There wasn't a whole lot of explanation. She was just a hard kid to deal with. Um,
Vagary.
and so it, her parents. This is where it gets vague. There's a lot of vagueness here. Um, as Teal tells
That
it,
sounds
her
very
parents had a
ominous. I know what
friend
to do with her.
that said he knew what to do with her, and then it gets complicated. And I'm gonna go into that in a few minutes, but like, she might have been
Okay.
abused in some way. I don't really know. We'll go into all of that detail. But the friend or whatever is known as Doc. You never know his real name.
Okay.
He actually does an interview on the podcast, and it turns out he was a
Nice.
holistic veterinarian and was really into alternative medicine for healing. In his interview, he mentions doing like acupuncture on a cow, and
Right.
I'm like, what now? But he says he's so good at it now that he doesn't even need the needles because it's all about
Gotcha.
intention. And I'm like, oh, I see where Till gets all this then. Okay, so he was kind of a mentor to her and introduced her to a lot of this alternative medicine and healing, etc. Now, Teal, as like a young woman, a teenager, was very suicidal. Like, her mom took her to all the doctors and all the things, and no one could help her, and she tried to kill herself. And
Okay.
her mom was a hippie, so they turned to um, Eastern medicine,
What is that?
and apparently they took Teal to a place in China to learn qigong. Yeah, right. Thank you. I was like, I don't know. So
Okay.
it's a traditional Chinese medicine that uses exercises to optimize energy within the mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
I, I don't know. But her mom, again, this is from the documentary I can't watch because I refuse to fall into that cult. Uh, appreciated it because
Yeah.
they were telling Teal that she had a gift and that the gift was hard to live with. So it was a different perspective as to feeling different and whatever. They turned the table for her. So
What?
whatever.
5?
I can tell you that Teal, as a grown up, has been married 5 times and has been
Okay.
in several relationships. And
Right.
in
So why
case
did
you're
she
wondering,
hang on to that
husband
one?
number two's last name was Swan. So that's where that comes from. Because I was like,
Teal
where is this
Swan. I
name
mean,
coming
yeah.
from? She probably
Okay.
liked it. I don't know. It's a cool sounding name. I'll give her that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the abuse. So, one of the
Mhm.
big appeals for Teal, especially from people who are suffering and depressed, is her story of being abused.
Yeah.
Um, she seems to think that her suffering gives her the ability to do the work she does now. And people are responding to her because they're like, well, she's been there. She gets it. Okay, so she alleges that she was abused from the age of 6 by a family
Wow.
friend. At 6, he pulled her off of her bicycle and raped her and continued to abuse her for the next
Oh, so
13
this is the
years.
same veterinarian
Again, she
guy.
never says his name publicly. She only refers to him as
Okay.
Doc. This is the same mentor that taught her about quantum healing and holistic healing. Yes. She claims that her childhood
What?
mentor, who she describes as a sociopath with multiple personalities, sewed her into a human corpse for 12 hours. An act that he followed
Oh
up with
my
eating the dead
gosh,
man's
that's
thigh muscle.
insane.
And he forced her to lure immigrants over the border for ritual child sacrifices. Also, that he used programming techniques to convince her that if she
Okay.
ever told, her
These are her
family would
words.
die.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm going to read you an excerpt from her book. This is Teal's book, so I'm not making this up. This is what she says. This is so. Just so you know, her first book she wrote, she thanks
Okay.
Doc for teaching her all of the things that got her on this path. In her second book, This is what she says. It's long, so buckle in. But it's important. In 1989, I was invited to visit the home of a girl who attended the same kindergarten class as I did. Her father was a member of a satanic coven in the area. It was there that I caught the attention of Doc. I have had to change his name for the purpose of this bio for legal reasons. Doc was in his 50s or 60s at the time, and as it turns out, my parents knew him casually already. But unbeknownst to my parents, he was a member of the Blood Covenant that had infiltrated a local satanic coven. Doc was a sociopath with multiple personalities. The only personality that most members of the community saw, including my parents, was a super intelligent, charismatic, and successful do-gooder type of personality. Because of his Because of his multiple personalities, however, Doc lived a double life. On one hand, he was likable, intelligent, local health expert, was obsessed with the study of the human mind. On the other hand, he was a sadistic psychopath who attended cult rituals in his spare time. I do not know if he and my parents had crossed paths again before this point, but having developed an obsession with the idea of possessing me, he followed me in his truck when I was riding my pink Huffy bike alone one day, pulled me off the bike, and raped me for the first time inside a local
But
Mormon
not like a
steak
restaurant.
house. Not cow steak. STAKE?
Steak,
I don't know
like,
what that is.
weird.
I'm sure other people do, but I
This
don't know.
is
Not a restaurant.
I
STAKE.
don't even
I don't know.
know.
I'm not done yet. To spare you the graphic details, from age 6 to 19, I was tortured physically and sexually in cult rituals. I was raped, deprived of food, and forced to undergo 3 abortions, all fathered and aborted by Doc himself. I was photographed for sadomasochistic pornography, sold to men for sex out of outdoor gas station bathrooms, kept in basements and in a hole in the ground in Doc's backyard.
What?
I was exposed to electroshock programming, forced to undergo isolation torture, and left overnight tied up in lava caves in southern Idaho. I was drugged chronically by Doc with anesthetics, all of which he had unlimited access to due to being a vet by trade. I was chased through Idaho and Utah wilderness by
Okay, I
Doc,
found out what a
playing
steakhouse
tracking
is.
games in which he would
Okay.
hunt me, and I would undergo consequences like having my rib cage cut or being raped if I was caught. And if I
So she's saying
used...
Doc killed kids.
Oh, I'm almost done. And I was used as a lure to other
Oh,
children
but do
that
you want to know
ended
what a
up being
steakhouse
hurt
is?
and on occasion killed.
It's the part of the Mormon church.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I
this is a
do
common
want to
term
know
for
what a
Mormon
steakhouse
churches.
is.
Technically, it is the church that houses the office of the stake president.
Who
Stake
raped her in a
presidents
church? Ooh,
preside
creepy.
over stakes, a grouping of 5 to 12 congregations or wards. The imagery is of Mormonism being a large tent with each of these stakes holding the tent down. Steakhouses or chapels are open to visitors. LDS temples are not. So, like if you're not an LDS member, you can't go into like the LDS
Oh.
temple, but these you can. Yeah, apparently. Okay, noted.
Hmm.
Not a restaurant.
But you can rape a 6-year-old in the steakhouse. Got it.
That's insane.
Okay, so this is what she says happened to her. I watched her do a news story in Idaho in which she talks more about it.
That all
Claiming it
falls
was a
into like the
satanic cult
90s satanic fan.
and that it was
Okay.
happening and blah blah blah. And like she is super committed. Yeah, hold on to that thought. We'll get there. But somehow she managed to escape and fled to her friend. I'm assuming that it's Blake, who becomes very important later
Yeah.
on, but I don't know if that's who she fled to. That's who she ended up with. And she lived with Blake, and Blake helped her in like a year get all better and whatever. I don't I don't know. Blake is a super nice guy, as far as I can tell. We'll come to him later. But so that's what she says happens. When she was very early on starting her spiritual
Yeah.
teaching
Okay.
life in like 2011, so same time that she was starting to see clients, like she had healed herself and wanted to heal others.
Okay.
She was working, or she was doing energy reading and healing at a local bookstore called the Cosmic Spiral. And while she was there, she met a girl named Tori McClellan. And they became friends. Like they liked each other. So Tori would go over and hang out with Teal and Blake because they were living together at that point. And just they'd watch movies and eat food, normal things.
Weird.
But very early on, Teal told
I was like,
Tori that they
that's
knew each other
strange.
from past lives. And Tori's like, okay, whatever. Because again, Teal believes that. She believes in reincarnation. About a year later,
Yeah.
Teal told Tori that they knew each other as kids. But Tori's like, no, we didn't. And they grew up in very different parts of Utah. They were never anywhere near each other. She's like, we didn't know each other as kids. But Teal was like, no, we did. And tells Tori that she was also part of the same cult that Teal was
What?
in. That
No.
they met at a ritual in the mountains, and at that ritual there was a child sacrifice. And Tori's like, I don't remember any of this. And she's like pushing back. And Teal, like, they apparently got into a huge argument about it. And Teal was
Okay.
saying that Tori had
Gotcha.
repressed those memories and was pushing her to go see the therapist that Teal had been seeing. Her name is Barbara Snow. Remember that name, it's important. Now, Teal claims that,
Gosh.
in this satanic cult, that specifically Doc killed 5 children in front of her. She saw 5
Right.
children get killed, and that the group itself
Right.
killed another 7. Now, these are mostly immigrant children that Teal lured across the border in order for them to, I don't know.
I was gonna say, does anybody missing kids?
So, but none of these murders were ever reported. Um, Well, and
Right,
they're
but
saying,
still.
well, if they were immigrants, then they have the choice of going to the police and getting, essentially kicked out of
Yeah,
the country
someone
because
should
they're
have
here
said something,
illegally
yeah.
and blah, 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 and just not reporting it. And I'm like, I just feel like someone would have caved and been like, but my kid's missing. One of the things that bothers me is that because of this story that Teal presents to her people, she attracts people who have gone through very severe abuse. So one of the
Oh,
people
wow.
that follows her and looks up to her was a survivor of the Rwandan genocide. And because
Hmm,
he feels like
yeah,
she can understand, like she's been in the same level of horror as he has. I'm like, that's horrific.
I sure did.
So so okay. Remember you brought up the satanic panic? That's right, you sure did. This is important too. So in the 80s, most of you know, satanic panic was occurring. Um, One of the biggest cases that happened during this time was the McMartin preschool case, in
Oh my
which
god.
hundreds of children
Yeah,
claimed that their daycare workers were doing rituals and infant sacrifice and
yes.
cannibalism, like on the kids.
And it was like anything bad
And
that happened, it really was like, "Oh,
like
it's a
it was
satanic
happening all over.
cult."
Everybody was concerned that there were
Yes.
satanic cults and they were stealing children and there was human sacrifice and like it was a thing.
Right.
It's a satanic cult. Um, but it was a national panic, trials all across the country, and it turned out that during the same time there was a rise in trauma-based therapy, and they had decided in the 80s that children and
Mhm.
people may be having
Right.
responses now to trauma that happened to them as kids, and it might be trauma that they don't remember. Interesting, right? And so satanic abuse stories
Yes.
became pretty common during this time. And it was because we were all concerned with satanic panic. Everybody had that in their
Mhm.
head. There's a lot of reasons why it happened.
Yep.
Like they're talking about how there is a conservative evangelical movement that happened in the 80s, and Satanism was everywhere because they were concerned, blah blah blah. But the satanic abuse stories became more common. Therapists were asking leading questions,
So it's almost
fearful
like they're
that their
planting
client might have
these
been a
things
victim of a
in their
satanic
clients'
ritual. So they're
heads,
like,
and
do
it's
you
like, that's
remember
not how
this?
you
Did
do
this happen
things.
to you? Blah, blah, blah. And so with the McMartin preschool case, it turned out like there was a trial and the workers were found not guilty because it turned out that all these kids
Right.
recovered memories from that they didn't have. Like they had recovered them. There was no proof. There's no evidence of any kind. It was just a recovered memory. And one of the therapists that was really into this particular line of therapy, and seemed to have a lot
Well,
of clients who
how
were
about them
victims of
apples?
satanic abuse, was a
Right.
therapist
How about
named
them apples?
Barbara Snow. And now I told you to remember that name. uh, Barbara was notorious in Utah for reporting false allegations of sexual abuse. So one of the issues with
Right.
that particular style of therapy is that
Yeah.
there was no credible science to support that the brain works that way, that the brain represses memories. We forget things, of course we do, and something might suddenly remind us of that memory, like, oh my god, I hadn't thought about that in years. It happens to me, but it's not repressed. I don't need help bringing it back or
Right.
like
Yeah.
working through having questions to try and figure out if it's there. Like that's just not really how the brain works. And Barbara specifically was a problem because she never recorded her
Yeah.
sessions. She never took any notes. So when she would go to court, she would just testify based on what she'd been told, like what she said she'd been told or whatever. Um, and she even treated a couple of her own family members who suddenly had repressed memories, to the point that she
Right.
almost
Yeah.
lost her license. She was put on probation for a while because she was violating like actual therapy law or whatever was going on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in the early 2000s, she was still being accused of planting so this was all like the 80s and 90s. The early 2000s, she was still being accused
Ta-da!
of
There it
planting
is.
false memories in her clients. Right around the time she was seeing Teal. And Tori,
Yeah.
her friend, Teal's friend, remembered Teal talking about um, Barbara helping her recover her memories. Now, Tori did listen to Teal and did a session with Barbara herself and was telling Barbara about dreams she was having. Because Tori was suffering, was dealing with depression and stuff as well. So she's like, all right, I'll go. And Barbara told her that her dreams were happening because she
Like,
had been
what?
drugged and abused as a child and that she had been drugged specifically with ketamine. Now, this is important because that's the same
Right.
drug that
There are so many
Teal
drugs out there to drug
says
people. Like,
her abuser used
I
on
just,
her and all of
I
the
don't get it.
children.
Whatever.
And I'm like, why would they all be using the same drug? Right.
Because she's like, I'm not
And
gonna
so
let you
so Tori
plant
was just
these
like,
false
absolutely
memories
not,
in my
I'm out. And she
brain.
just GTFO'd. She and Teal stopped being friends. She just was like, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. Now, Barbara had Teal report the abuse to the police. So, like, had to actually, like, go down and file the whole thing or whatever, like, as an adult at this point. The police took a
Right.
report, and they didn't do anything initially because Teal said she was afraid of retribution from Doc. So, like, nothing really happened. It just kind of sat there as a report. A couple of years later, I'm not sure which husband she was on at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever her husband was convinced her to pursue it. And so she went back to the police station, did more interviews. They
Okay.
did a medical exam on her, and she gave them journals from her middle school years because she kept prolific journals as a teenager. And this is the podcast who read the police reports, like read the actual
Like
things.
nothing that was because
And
like
according
stars
to
and
those
stuff and
reports, there
all that.
was
Yeah.
no evidence from the medical exam of any physical or sexual abuse. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like,
Ramblings of a teenager.
and the journals that they had didn't speak directly of any kind of abuse. It was just the emotional crazies of a ramblings of a teenage girl. Yeah, just all over the place kind of a thing. So, like, they did nothing.
Okay.
They never even contacted the guy. The guy didn't know
So
that
he
he
was
was,
under
like,
the
he
impression
knew
like,
that
oh,
Teal had made these
somebody has
claims,
done
but he
this to
didn't know
her.
he was the guy
Shock,
she was making
surprise,
the
it's
claims
you.
about.
It's like, no, it's not. That's crazy.
So, yes. Okay. So, all of this to set up the stage. It's a lot, I know, but all that to set the stage for the documentary itself. So, in this docu-series, hi?
Yes.
For me? I
Are
want
you
one.
hungry?
I'm starving.
This whole thing is for you.
The whole thing's
I thought
for
you
me?
could like take a pause.
Whoa.
So that brings me to the
That is a
documentary.
long time.
So this team followed Teal and her intentional community for
Okay.
3 years, which I think is insane. I will tell you, it is a total shit show. You got to watch it. It's only like 4 episodes long.
Right.
Okay. Now I will say, yes, of course, they absolutely edited
had
the
an angle and
crap
they wanted to
out of
fit
this
that
thing.
angle.
Because 1 is 3 years, but 2, they were telling a story and they made sure it sounded that way, and I get that. Teal, however, was surprised to see that the docuseries took the turn that it did, and she made response videos to each episode because they aired them like weekly. There'd be a new episode for 4 weeks. And so here's my problems. The Teal that you see on these episodes, as well as I watched her response videos, as well as the Teal that you see in her response videos to these episodes, I think show who Teal really is. She comes across as a sociopath, as a monster. And you can see the difference from where they catch her on stage or like at a workshop or a retreat. She
doesn't have that personality, like,
you can tell
on,
as opposed to when she's with her like little intentional community, the small few or whatever. Well,
right.
the warm, caring act that you see in her videos or on stage is not who she looks like or comes across as in any other way. In the very first episode, as well as a lot of the other things that I've read and watched, she claims that she has psychic abilities. She also claims that, she,
like her handler,
as a very young woman, found Blake, who is like not her manager. I forget what his title is, but anyway, being with him and living with him healed her from her trauma. Blah 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 blah. But she calls him her family and says that they are in each other's lives forever. And that's important because what this docuseries follows is a girl named Juliana, who is a Teal follower, but had met
were never,
Blake
like, in a relationship.
At some point in his work doing Teal stuff.
Okay.
And they fell in love.
But then they still remained friends.
He and Teal were in a relationship. for about a year.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And he has
Mm-hmm.
almost always lived with her. Like, he had his own apartment before Juliana came, but I think because she was coming, he moved out to his own apartment.
Yeah.
But immediately, so like, Teal is accepting that Juliana is coming, but she
Yeah.
is immediately upset about it as well. There's a scene in the very first episode where they're all, not Juliana, she's not there yet, but they are all in a hot tub or a pool or something. And she's saying she's upset about Juliana coming because Juliana would have an instantaneous platform, because all she has to say is that she
Almost kind of
lived near
a
Teal, or she was part of the
like a
community, and people will listen
like
to
a
whatever she
leech.
has to say. So
The
she's
way
already
that
viewing
like
Juliana as a
you're
threat
just
of some kind.
sucking off my popularity, or
And
you're popular by association. Like, she's
yeah.
automatically assuming that she's going to be a leech, and it's like that's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And she's not even there yet. And she's
What?
saying that. And then she also says that
Oh,
she's worried
okay.
that Blake will be too lovey
Right.
dovey and not focus on his responsibilities. And I'm like,
Like, and that sounds
let the
very
guy
bitchy.
have some, quality time with his girlfriend. Like, and so that's episode 1.
Yeah.
In episode 2, well, and like, it's episode 1, you're not really sure what to think about Teal. You see good things, you see bad things, you're like, okay. But it really, to me, I'm following the story of Juliana and Blake. So in episode 2, Juliana and Blake come over to
Yeah.
Teal's,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a heart to heart in which Teal tells her that her community, as in like this inner tribe group, is her everything.
That
And Teal
almost
says to Juliana,
implies that they're
Blake is
together.
the person that she's
Like,
closest
that
to. He's
implies
her
like
safe place. And what does
they
that
are
say to you, Claire?
in like a intimate relationship, not just
Right?
friends,
Like, it's
or
weird.
like, he's my best friend. Because I know in high school I had tons of guy friends. I had guy friends, but I would, yeah, it's a weird way to say that. It is.
Right. Like, it's a
Yeah.
weird thing to say, like, and I don't know if it was her first day there. That was the implication the docu-series gave. I don't know, but either way, it was weird. But Teal also goes on to explain that,
Yeah.
this situation isn't like chill out with Teal.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff happening, and people sometimes leave, or they turn, they not only leave, they turn on Teal. And to me, I'm watching this and I'm like, all I could see is that Teal is a super crazy person. And she lashes out a lot because
Yeah.
I
I
will
mean,
tell her,
even
like,
like her
Teal is
saying that
she's never ever
she
wrong
didn't do anything wrong with that
about
one
anything
person
ever. And that comes across
dying
a
by
lot in
suicide.
everything that I watched and
What was her
read.
name? Susan? Leslie, sorry. Susan. Where did I pull that from? I don't
Right?
know.
It's like,
There
my
are a lot of
God.
names. But yeah, the fact that Leslie died by suicide, and she was just
Leslie.
like, I did
It's fine.
nothing wrong.
I don't know. We've had a
That's
lot of names.
very, I don't know, pretentious or whatever. Just like, what?
Mm-mm. Right? Ugh. Okay, so by the end of episode 2, Juliana seems to fit in well, regardless of that weird interaction. She seems to get along with
Yeah.
people. She even says to the cameraman that Teal feels like a big sister to her. And so Blake decides that he's going to ask Juliana to marry him, and he tells Teal about it. And Teal seems okay and excited about it, but she says this weird thing that just, like, the first, like, I've watched this at least 2 or 3 times at this point because I'm obsessed. But she says this weird thing. She
Hmm.
says that she notices that Juliana doesn't react when Blake touches her, Teal,
That's
like
weird. That's
reaching out
another
or
weird.
whatever.
That's
Saying,
so weird.
Teal's saying that she'd been watching, and that's a good thing. And I'm like, why are you watching that? What are you doing?
And
But anyway,
then it
so
all
so
just
Blake and
breaks
Juliana, they get
down.
married, everything seems fine. And then we get to episode 3 where Matthias, who is Teal's manager, and
Oh,
Teal
yeah.
sit down and have a conversation with Blake and Juliana. Now, they say they're doing this as a response. They watched the Oprah
Right.
Winfrey special with Meghan and Harry about how Meghan was not prepared for life with the royal family. No one prepared her. No one talked to her about it. It was just a train wreck. And so
Yeah.
that's the reason for the conversation, in which they say that there is no leisure travel. So Juliana is from Germany. Like, her family is in Germany. And they're essentially being told
That's
they can't go
stupid.
to Germany unless they're doing it for Teal, like as part of the business or
What does
whatever.
that even mean?
And Teal says
That oh my
verbatim,
gosh.
"A normal life is not compatible with the life we are leading." So, episode 4, which is the last one, I don't know what the fuck happened. I'm gonna be quite honest. From what I can tell, there was a moment in which Juliana doesn't is talking about people who don't want to do the
Right.
trauma work, and she's like, we shouldn't force people to do this if they don't
Well,
want
some people
to, like,
aren't
to
ready
go
for that.
through this
Like,
bad, hard process. And Teal
if
gets
you
really
really
mad
truly
about
have,
it
like,
and
repressed
is like,
memories,
but we have
you
to.
have to be in a good space for
And
that. She's what? Yeah.
Teal's never wrong. Teal is never wrong.
Okay.
um Teal is never wrong. She's always right. But so then there's suddenly this weird, I call it the attack scene, because it is the most mean girl attack I think I have ever seen in my entire life. So it's this core group, like the 6 to 10 people that are in the intentional community. They're all
Mhm.
just kind of sitting around in a room. Both Teal and Juliana are there. And because Juliana is not part of that core group, Blake is. So she's there some, she's not always there. They have their own apartment. It's complicated. But so Juliana is there, and Teal says, "I'm really angry today, and I realized it's because a personal truth is not being shared." And then she says, "Juliana, you feel like an adversary to me."
Juliana is not American. She is
And so,
German.
like, Juliana doesn't know what adversary means. She's like, what's this word mean? Because she's German.
Right.
No, she's German. And so, like, one of the other people is like, "It means enemy." And it was super shitty, and like Teal is trying to get her to say how she feels about her truly, and Juliana is,
Right.
you can tell she's completely caught off guard, and she's careful about her words because you can tell she's just not sure what the fuck to say. But what she does say does not make Teal happy, and so instead,
This
um,
is this
she
is
has
oh,
everyone in the room go around and say what they think Juliana's attitude towards Teal is. And they say like the shittiest things, like because they go around like, you're always, you're against her, and you're jealous of her, and you wish you had what she had. And I'm like, this is what you think. You can tell that's what they think, but they are responding to Teal. And so after they do that, it goes back to Teal. Teal has been writing down on a piece of paper what she psychically is getting from Juliana as to how Juliana feels about Teal, and reads through this list of like really shitty stuff. Is like, this is how you feel towards me. And then she has the audacity to
oh.
say something fucking ridiculous of how, I don't know why you feel like you're the one being attacked when I have to live with this every day. And I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you, Teal? Like, it was so bizarre. And like, I honestly think it was just to try and get Blake to separate from her, but
My
Blake gets up
God.
from where he was in the circle and goes sits next to her, and he's like, "What was the point of
So
this?
please tell me
Was
that
there
he
a
doesn't
point?"
like
And Teal's like,
ditch
"You tell
her,
me."
right?
And what the fuck is wrong with you?
Good. Okay, they live together. Okay,
Ugh,
good.
it was a nightmare. So Blake and Juliana leave the cult, and that's what I call it. At this point, I was like, "This is the cultiest cult thing ever," and
Right.
um that whole leaving scene was fucking weird. Like, he's trying to like give her a hug goodbye because he still has he has years of feelings and emotions with Teal, and he's not like going off to badmouth her. I can't find a single thing he said, quite honestly. But like she's just like blank stare and not hugging him back and all this weird stuff. And so he ends up
Mhm.
posting in the Teal Tribe, the Facebook group, that,
Yeah,
he's
like,
newly married. They've decided to step away from leadership role for a while, blah, blah, blah. It's very
yeah.
normal, kind of whatever. And he's immediately getting responses back of, thank you for your hard work and wish you the best, because that's how normal people are. So Teal and Matthias are watching in real time the Facebook posts or whatever as people are commenting. And this is what Teal says. All these people are like wishing
Wow.
him and his wife a wonderful life
She's
together. And
psychotic.
if they
This is
really knew what had
like
happened here,
psychoticness.
they'd
It's
be
like,
wanting her
what?
dead.
Dang.
I know. I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you? So, in the midst of all this drama, Teal's team actually has hired a private investigator to try and help them with their bad press. It's an independent person who's trying to see if
Yeah.
there is any, proof or evidence to support the claims that people are making about Teal and like the cult, it being a cult or the suicide stuff, blah, 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 blah. And so her name is Molly, and she talks to followers, mental health professionals, people who have left. So she talks to
Frequency
one guy
paintings.
named Jared, who talked to her about Teal is an artist, by the way. She paints these things called frequency paintings. Yes, and if you have one of these not super cheap
Mm,
frequency paintings, it will help you heal your trauma just by looking at it.
right.
So he bought that crap. He worked for her for a while and was like, he never got paid. I mean, he got room and board, but he didn't get paid. He was asked about him leaving, like how it was, and he said it was not great. Like on TV, like on the
What?
video
Oh my
camera, everything
gosh.
seemed nice, but as soon as those cameras were off, Teal told him to go kill himself, that there is no hope for him.
Yeah.
He's one that
Right.
said that, Teal had planted false memories. Like he 100% believed all this stuff, and then he left. He's like, it's not real. Molly also talks to Blake, who at this point was still in the inner circle. And Blake
Like everybody else was
said,
just like
he
friends with
really
each
was
other.
the only
Nobody else
one in
was
this core group who had a relationship outside
right
of that
because
core
she
group.
squirreled them all away from their families.
Um, Everyone else had no relationship or with someone in the core group. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Molly talked to other former members who talked about it's called shadow work outside of Teal's whatever, but it's the completion process in her world. Like going through that made everything much worse, made them much more depressed, more suicidal.
Yes. What is it?
Then
'Cause I'm like,
Molly gets the non-negotiable list. What is the non-negotiable list, you ask, Claire?
so this is the
It
intention
is a
for
list
people.
of things that people have to agree to if they're going to be part of the
Okay.
inner circle.
What's on this list? What is on this list?
Yes, the
I'm ready for
intentional
this.
community
I'm
that
ready for this
surrounds Teal.
ridiculousness because I'm sure I want to
Oh,
know.
what is on this list? Um, well, one, you can't. I don't think you are. I don't think you're ready. You can't put your own family
Okay.
first. Teal has to come first. If she wants you there, she gets you. The
If this
priority of the
if
entire
this is not
community
a
is
cult,
whatever is in the
this is the
best interest of
this is the
Teal.
cultiest
Everything else is second to
non-cult
that.
I've ever heard of. Yes.
Are you ready? You can't have
I can't.
personal
I
boundaries that in
can't.
any way have an
How many
effect
things
on
are
Teal.
on this list? Okay. Okay.
Okay, and this is well, these are just the ones that
Right.
were mentioned specifically in the docuseries because Molly reads them and to Blake and is like, Blake respond to these? And he's like, You will now be in the world of fame. This makes relationships very complicated and often painful. Your associations are, in fact, your potential biggest liability. Anyone you introduce to the community could turn on Teal, blackmail her, rip the community apart, put extra pressure on Teal or the community. When fame and money are involved, people simply cannot be trusted. Your life is not going to even remotely resemble normal.
I don't even know
If
what to
you
say
want
to
to have a
these.
normal life, do not choose to be part of the inner circle.
Right. I mean, she's not wrong. Because that's
So
insane.
Molly is like, well, Molly's like freaked out by this. She's like, the fuck is this? And so Molly talks to Teal. And, there's two questions that Molly is supposed to answer. Does Teal cause suicide? Is this a cult? And she says,
Right.
no, maybe. There's not enough evidence to prove that anything that Teal has done has caused suicide, but this list is really concerning to Molly. She's like, this maybe is a cult. And Teal's face was the most amazing thing ever. She was surprised. Like, she's like, what?
Right.
And like she tries to like dig herself out by giving the answers that Molly wants to hear, but Molly's like, you've already told me these things. You told me these things. We've had conversations. This is words out of your mouth
Right.
that I've already used.
So what were when you
All
talked
that to
about
say
Teal and
that
her
we'll
response
never
videos, like
see that
what
report because it was
were her
for them and they're
responses?
never going to
Was it
publish it.
just like
So now I'm gonna. So basically, her big response is that it's very heavily edited. They used sound bites from
right.
things that weren't in that scene, or they put scenes together that weren't actually related. And I'm like, that's fair. And I
Right.
100% believe that those things probably happened. However, the way you respond to things that I'm watching come out of your
Yeah.
mouth is my issue. It's the mean girl thing that you did in the
Right.
circle.
It's so
That
shitty.
was all you, and it was shitty. So. The fact that the non-negotiable list exists, that's shitty.
Yeah.
And it was funny because she tried to back down on the non-negotiable list, saying it was just something in her response videos, saying that it was just something that her marketing team had kind of been kicking around doing. But Blake, when asked about it on the docuseries,
Right.
said, he hadn't looked at them in several months or whatever, and that he had agreed to all of them before because it just made sense because he didn't remember them off the top of his head.
Right. Like he has
So I'm
seen
like,
this. This is
and
not
Teal is
this
responding
is
to
a thing.
them
This is a thing
with
universe.
Molly
Yeah.
on a call, and you were watching. I was like, so this isn't just something your marketing team was kicking around. The light came on. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, but basically, it's just over and over. I'm not like this, and I care about people, and they've just they lied to.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, she's saying they lied to me. They told me that they were wanting to do a thing about me to
I
let people know what my true message is and blah blah blah. So, these are my takeaways. I have a few. So,
know.
I
Uh-huh.
watched this inner group a lot, and they just kind of parrot back to her whatever she wants. So they never say anything conflicting or they never disagree with
Right.
her. They'll let her say something and then they'll say it back to her using different words but they're always agreeing. No one ever disagrees.
Oh
Ever.
my god.
And most of the time, which is really creepy, is that
Mm-hmm.
she'll say stuff and they'll just be super silent until they can figure out what they're supposed to say back. Like no one talks. If Teal's talking,
Yeah.
Teal talks, no one else talks. And they sit and they wait. And then sometimes she'll be like, why aren't you guys saying anything? And then they'll parrot back exactly what she said. It's bizarre. When something is going wrong,
Mm-hmm.
so at one of the retreats there was a guy who seemed to be there
Yeah.
because he was
How can I
sexually
help you?
attracted to Teal.
Right.
And he basically owned up because she's like, well, why are you here? Why? Because that's one of her things. What are you here for? What can I? Why? Why aren't you telling me or whatever? And he's like, maybe it's just I think you're sexually attractive or whatever. And to be fair,
Right.
like it upset her. And to be fair, it
Right.
should have. That's shitty. That's awful. I'm Not gonna say otherwise. She had every right to be upset that he said that to her and he was doing that. It's not okay. Um, but when she's telling her inner core group about it, everyone just kind of sits there again and looks at her,
Like a
waiting to be
meltdown.
told what to do, how to react, and they just like she just spins out like
Yeah.
she's mad, she's angry, and she's having like a pure like tantrum or whatever meltdown, and they're all just like just waiting. Um, her response videos, which you also have to watch after you've watched the documentary, were 100% trash. So they
Right.
put her in white in every single response video because, they're trying to make her look truthful. White is the color of truth and honesty. I know the marketing bullshit, but like she just looks harsh.
Does she not
Um,
know how
my
docuseries
favorite
work?
thing is in the first video because she's
Like, you know what I'm
mad
saying?
that the docuseries is a bunch of edited stuff put together. It's like blah blah blah. No. But like she's mad about how they've edited things together that didn't belong together, blah blah blah. And so the first thing she says is
Wow.
like, this is an unedited response video. And then there's at least 6 cuts in that first one. I'm like, it's edited. You're stupid. Don't say that if it's not
Right.
real. But she comes across very cold. She's seething with anger, and you can tell she's just reading a response. Like
Like, it's not
there's
authentic.
just
It's not like
there's like this monotoneness to her. Like it's not. I don't know. Hmm. Well, and Teal herself is frustrating. So like
mhm.
I told you that Tori, her friend from way back in the day, remembers Teal telling her about how Barbara helped her recover memories of her abuse.
Of course not.
Teal claims that she has
Because
never
Tori would
repressed any
just pull something like
memories
that
and
out of
that
her
she is
ass.
unique and
It's like
special and did not repress memories. That's it. She also claims, oh, wait,
oh
I'm
my
not done.
god.
She also claims she sure would. Teal also claims that she's a medical savant, has a photographic memory, is psychic, can read people, can hear their thoughts, and on and on and on and on and on. Like to the point that in the podcast with Jennings Brown, in one of their conversations, she says that she can see the blood going through his veins, can see his heartbeat, can see that he's dehydrated, and can see that his intestines are inflamed because he had wheat to eat and he's lightly gluten intolerant. Like she claims she can
What?
do all this and see all these things.
What is it? Oh my god.
Which leads
That's
me
so
to,
ridiculous.
if she truly can do all of those things, how was it that for 3 years she was with a documentary team and is so surprised and feels so betrayed at what they did and how they portrayed her?
Right.
She's like, it's a big betrayal. I was like, shouldn't you have been able to
If you
psychically
can read
determine
yeah, if you
what
can
their
read their
intention
minds,
was
you
all that
know.
time? I mean, you could with
Right.
Juliana. You read her mind. And it's not like it was a week or something. 3 years. Three
Right.
years. So call them
Like, you should have been
bullshit
able
there.
to read their minds and know what their intentions were
Hmm.
from the get-go. Right.
So, um,
That's like we had some people come in who were from this was several years ago, several years ago,
hmm
and, wanting a sign for their psychic business, and they wanted to know how much it cost, and, kinda like, "Well, if you're psychic, you should know how much it's gonna cost." It was one of those things where I didn't say that, but, it's just kinda like, Yeah. It's like but yeah.
well, and so that's why I'm like 3 years though.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a long time to be with somebody and to follow them around. I can't imagine being that team and following her around because she sounds like a nightmare.
Right? Okay. So to me, obviously, she is a cult leader. Now, I don't think that her followers, like the generic people watching videos, are
Right.
in a cult.
Right.
Um, I don't necessarily think that the Teal tribe on Facebook is part of a cult. They're closer to it than the followers, but I do 100% believe that her inner circle is a cult
Oh yeah.
because They have all left their families and friends behind.
Mhm.
They serve only Teal. They wait on her hand and foot. They do whatever she wants. They parrot back to her whatever she wants to hear. One of the things that bothers me, in the docuseries, there's a girl named Sabrina who confronts Teal at a workshop saying, I've been doing this. I don't feel better. Everything is worse now. Teal had told her that her parents didn't love her, and so she left, like she moved out of the
Oh,
house
wow.
because she believed Teal because Teal is a psychic, so she would know that her parents didn't love her. But then she lost everyone all the support she had, and she tried to kill herself. And so she's like, I tried to kill, things are not better now. And then Teal looks at her and says, but your life is better now than before. And she gets upset and she runs off. And what Teal says to her people is that she doesn't know what to do with people like her, because if she kills herself, they're gonna blame Teal and they're gonna put it on the news. Like, that's all she seems to care about. Like, it's super culty.
Yeah.
All she wants is to maintain her power and to get more followers, and
Right.
it's bizarre. Now,
It
to
does,
be
yeah.
fair, I do think she wants to help Sabrina. At least when the camera's on her, and Sabrina's around, she seems
Right.
to want to help Sabrina, but I don't really know if she does or not. But again, the thing that stuck out to me the most was how no one would talk if she's talking. She always has to tell people kind of how to respond to her. And
That's ridiculous.
I'll be honest, I don't know if it's the editing, but no one ever says anything that opposes Teal's views, that opposes what she's doing. Not even like a what if kind of a thought. What if we didn't do it that way? Or what if we
Right.
considered blah, blah, blah? The only person who ever said anything opposing to Teal was Juliana, and it was maybe we shouldn't force people to do this. And then
Right.
Juliana was very much attacked in that circle and run out. So
So
that
did Blake
Claire.
eventually leave?
Yeah, Blake left. So
Okay,
I
good for
know that
him.
Blake and Juliana are still married. They run an adventure experience or whatever somewhere else in Utah.
Okay.
But like, guys, I am here for the whatever works for you, go with it, because who am I to judge on what works?
Right.
But like, Teal comes across and says things that make you think that she believes she's the only one with the right answer and everyone else is wrong,
Right.
and they're always wrong, and she knows everything, and she's never had a failure, and she's never done anything wrong or bad, and it's terrifying, honestly. I mean,
Yeah. It
she's
sounds like it.
absolutely a cult leader. And told Spencer, poor guy, has had to hear this for the last week. I said, at best, she's just a narcissist who just loves all the attention, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Um, at worst, she's a sociopath. The guy, Doc, had no idea that she was saying this stuff. None of it happened. He was like, she's always told stories, and I've always called her out on it. So he assumes that that's why, is that he always called her out on her lies and her crap that weren't real.
Gotcha.
So, she's not really as smart as she thinks she is. She finished high school early because she made her teachers feel bad for her and just kind of like pass her on things. She didn't actually learn or do anything. So
Wow. Oh my
it's,
gosh.
to me, I have flashbacks to the sociopaths I've met in my life. She seems very similar to them,
Oh, yeah.
especially in how she deals with the people around her and what happens if someone steps out of line. So there you have it. My very in-depth analysis of Teal
Wow.
Swan, the cuckoo cachoo cult leader.
That's crazy.
And now you all have to go watch the docuseries, because hysterically, part of the response videos is like, she's created a hashtag release the footage. It's like, release the unedited footage so people can see what was really going on. I'm like, 3 years of footage? Are you insane? But I'm over here like, hashtag release the report that Molly wrote, because I want to read that shit.
Right.
So
Right. Like, I'm like you, I feel like that's probably more damning than anything.
Mm-hmm. Super fucking scary. All right.
Indeed. That's
And
nuts.
on to
Tarot time with April.
a spooky. But not as a spooky as the cult.
No.
All right, Claire, you ready? One last one. Tell me when to stop.
Yep. Stop.
Alright, guys. So for this week, we have a card I can't read. Oh, the Ten of Cups. The Five of Coins, which pentacles, by the way, coins.
Coins or pentacles.
And the Chariot.
Whoa. That one.
Yes, coins are pentacles. And also, this deck has a Pope and a Popess instead of the High Priestess and the Hierophant. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's the same card, just different name.
What was the last one?
The Chariot.
Chariot.
So, what did I tell you? Ten of Cups?
Yep. Ten of Cups. Five of Pentacles.
Cups. I know you're in here. Don't mess with me. Here you go.
I don't think we've had that one before.
Huh?
Yes, I don't think we've had that one before.
The Ten of Cups.
I don't think we've had any of these.
Blessings, celebrations, and wishes coming true. That's nice.
Well, that's nice.
It's a great card to have for the short term. Let's see. The problem with the Ten of Cups is that it seems like you are sitting on your laurels and you have everything you wanted, so now what? I'm here for that. Give me everything I've ever wanted.
So.
I want it. Give me.
Hope so.
Alright, so next is the Five
of Coins or Pentacles.
Coins and Pentacles. Oh, wow. Down on your luck, being ill, being discontented from hope. This card is really a punch in the stomach.
Shit.
All of those things that keep you up at night, all of those things you can't control that keep you up at night, sorry. You lost your job, you lost your love, the ground under your feet has shifted, and things are going to be difficult for a while. Wow.
So we go from
getting everything we wanted to a punch in the gut.
To nothing.
Oh boy. Alright. Come on, Chariot, give us some love.
Right.
That sounds awful. Alright.
That does sound awful.
Let's see. The Chariot. Let's see. In a reading, this card comes up when someone is recognizing their strength or when they're about to start on a new crusade. People want to follow him because he inspires passion in him. That's the Chariot driver. So if you've begun to follow someone with a lot of charisma, the Chariot will come up.
It's a cult card.
It is a cult card. But it says, let's see. There's always a thing. The reins, they're inside of you. You have to reach down inside of you and pull yourself up by your will. Your indomitable, badass will. So everything comes crashing down and then we pull ourselves back up. So we get everything we've ever wanted. Then we lose stuff and then we have to put our big girl pants on and
deal with it.
Deal with it.
Well,
sounds good to me.
That was
alright, Claire.
Crazy.
It is time for the Wheel of Fate. No whammies.
No whammies indeed.
No more deep dives into crazy Teal Swan, which was not my initial topic. I was going to do something else entirely.
Right.
But
Like,
here
but
we
there's
are.
so many cults.
There's so many
All right.
cults.
Oh, snap.
What is it?
Wild card.
Ooh. Okay, guys. Wild card. Who knows what we'll bring you next time?
It can be anything.
Anything that we want, which is everything.
Right.
All
Oh, snap.
right.
Wild card. Yes.
I don't know about you, but I'm tired. So
Same. It's been a long
we
day.
will see you next time. Feel free to find us on all the things at all the places at
Brunch and Judge.
and send us those emails as soon as you can at
brunchandjudge@gmail.com.
excellent. So until next time, keep on brunching
And keep on judging.
and stay the fuck out of Teal Swan's world, okay? It's not a good place to be.
Just don't
Hey,
join cults,
don't-
guys. Don't.
No cults.
Don't
But
do
also
it.
don't sign a list of non-negotiables.
Right.
Don't
Yeah.
do that.
Anybody who asks that of you, it's a cult. Just
Yes.
it's a red flag. It's a cult.
It's a giant fucking red flag. Stay away.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Brunch and Judge. Brunch and Judge. We brunch and judge everything and give you opinions that nobody asked for.